Hello students, I am back with yet another programming problem, and today we are going to write a program to calculate nth term of Fibonacci series. What is a Fibonacci sequence or series? The Fibonacci sequence is the series of numbers 0, 1, 1, 2, 3 like that. And how these terms are calculated is that every term is calculated by adding up the last two terms before it. So the third term is calculated by adding up first and second term. 0 plus 1 is 1. Fourth term is calculated by adding up second and third term, that is 1 plus 1 is 2. Likewise, any term, if you see this term is calculated by adding up 3 plus 5, which were the terms which are the terms before two terms before it. So likewise, all these terms of the Fibonacci series can be calculated. Now we have to write a program to calculate the nth term of the series where the value of n has to be taken from the user. So before going ahead and looking at the logic of calculating nth term, let us grab the value n from the user. So for storing the value of n, let me declare a variable n, and then I prompt the user to enter the value of n. After prompting the user, when user enters the value, I would grab it and store it in the variable which I have declared for it. So now when we have the value of n in this variable n, then we can go ahead and write the logic of calculating nth term of the series. Now to calculate the nth term of the series, we would start from the first two term and then we would calculate the third term by adding up these two terms, and then after we have the third term, we would go ahead and calculate the fourth term by adding up second and third term. Likewise, we would go up to the nth term. When we reach up to nth term, then we already had calculated n minus 1th term and n minus 2th term, and then we would add n minus 1th term and n minus 2th term to get the nth term, and there our program would finish and we would print the nth term on the console. So if you see, to calculate any term, any term, say ith term, we just need to have the values of I minus 1th term and I minus 2th term. All the terms that we have calculated prior to it can be discarded, right? So for this reason, I am going to declare two variables in which we would be storing only the latest two terms that we have calculated till now. So t1, let's say t1 and t2. These are the two variables in which I would be storing the latest two terms that I have evaluated, where the last term would be kept in t1, last but one term would be kept in t1, and the last term would be kept in t2. So to begin with, we would initialize this with the first two terms of the series, and then we would keep on updating this t1 and t2 variables to hold the latest two terms of the latest two terms we have evaluated till now. So to begin with, we would initialize it with 0 and 1, which are the first two terms of the series. Now the logic of calculating starting from third term to the nth term would be kept within a loop. So this is a repetitive logic in which we are adding up the latest two terms which we have hold in t1 and t2 to get the next term, and then again we would update t2 and t1 to hold the latest two terms that we have evaluated till now, and then in the next iteration again we are going to evaluate the next term using t1 and t2's updated values. So for this we are going to write a loop, and before writing a loop we are going to declare a variable I which would be used as loop variable. So as we are starting to calculate the terms from third term onwards, third term, then fourth term, fifth term, up to nth term. So let me initialize this loop variable with 3. So what I mean to say is that the value of I would represent the ith term of the series that we are going to evaluate in the iteration. So at the end of this loop, when the loop finishes, what I wish is to get the nth term of the series. That is what our target is. So the last value of I in this loop would be n. That is, the stopping condition would be I less than equals to n, right? So it would start from I equals to 3 and it would go up to n. So in all it is going to loop for n minus 2 times. Now I'll declare another variable, say new term, in which at every iteration we would add up t1 and t2's value, which are holding the latest two terms that we have evaluated till now, and then we would keep this summation of t1 and t2 into the new term. So the new term would hold the ith term of the sequence. So new term would hold the ith term of the sequence. So say at the first iteration when I is 3, what would happen here is that we are trying to calculate the third term of the series, third term of the sequence. Now T1 has a value 0 and T2 has a value 1. So in the first iteration when I is 3, new term would be 0 plus 1, that is 1, and which is nothing but the third term of the series, right? Now after getting the third term of the series, before going to the next iteration, we are going to update T1 and T2 in such a way that they would hold the latest two terms that we have evaluated till now. So we have evaluated this latest two terms that we have evaluated that we know till now is the third term and the second term. So we want to store the second term in T1 and the third term in T2. So we are going to update T1 and T2 in such a way that T2 would contain the last term and T1 would contain last but one term. So the last term that we have evaluated till now is currently in new term. So we are going to and the last but one term is in T2, right? So we are going to update T1 with T2's value and T2 with the new term's value, and this is how we are going to achieve our condition in which T2 and T1 would always contain the last two terms that we have evaluated till now. So when I becomes 4, so T1, so when I becomes 4, so we have discussed about when I is 3. Now in the next iteration when I becomes 4, T1 and T2 would contain these two values, 1 and 1, right? So when I becomes 4, new term would be 1 plus 1, 2. So new term would get a value 2, which is nothing but fourth term of the series. Again T2 would be updated with 2 and T1 would be updated with 1. Now we are assigning here T1 equals to T2. So T2 previously had this value. Now this is assigned to T1, so T1 would have the value 1, and after that new term's value would be assigned to T2, that is new term is currently 2, so 2 would be assigned to T2, so T2 would contain the value 2, so that in the next iteration when I becomes 5, T2 would be containing 2 and T1 would be containing 1. Those are fourth term and third term of the series, so that we get, in the new term we would get the fifth term of the series by adding these two terms. Likewise it would go on till the value of I becomes n, and at the last iteration the new term would get the value of nth term of the sequence, And after we come out of this loop, after last iteration, we are going to print whatever value is there in new term, because this would hold the nth term of the sequence. So after this loop, we are going to print the value of new term. So here I am just writing %dth term of Fibonacci is %d, and the first of this %d's I'm going to replace with the value of n, and the second of this %d's I'm going to replace with the value of new term. I hope the syntax of printf is clear to you. So these are %d's are placeholders, and before printing it to the console, the printf function is going to replace this %d's with the value of the variables which are following this first comma. So this second parameter of the printf function, that parameter's value would replace the first %d, and the third parameter's value would replace the second %d, and whatever string that results, that would get printed on the console. Now there are two special conditions which I have left. One is when the value of n is equals to 1, that is, the user wants the first term of the Fibonacci series. So in that case, uh, what I am going to do is, if I check the condition, if the value of n is 1, that means the first term of the series has to be printed. So in that case, as we are printing new term at the end, I just assigned new term equals to 0, so that the same printf function can be used to print the first term of the series as well. Likewise, this is also a special condition, that is the second term of the series. So in this case, new term is nothing but second term of the series, that is 1. First term of the series is 0, second term of the series is 1, and if the value of anything greater than 2, then we would use this loop to calculate that nth term of the series. So in else part, we are going to have this loop. So I'm including this for loop within the else part. Here there is some basic assumption that we have made, is that the value entered by the user would be greater than 0. Fine, that is the assumption that we have made. Now we are complete with this program. I hope you have understood the logic behind it. So here in T1 and T2, before the start of every iteration, we have the values which we have evaluated, two values which have evaluated uh, latest. Right? The last value would be there in T2, and the last but one value would be in T1. And using these two values, we are getting a new term by adding them up. And then we are updating T1 and T2 in such a way that the condition of the last two terms being in T2 and T1 would always hold. And after the nth iteration, after the last iteration, the new term would contain the nth term of the sequence. So with that, we have finished our code. Let us run it and check whether it works fine or not. So there is some um, syntax error here, so I have missed the if here. Now I think it has built properly. Let us print the fifth term of the series, and fifth term of the Fibonacci series is 3. That is correct. If you check here, the fifth term of the series is 3. Now let us run it once more, and let us check eighth term of the series. So eighth term of the series is 13. Let us check. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. 8 term of the series is indeed 13. Let us check the boundary conditions, that is when n is 1 and when n is 2. Let us check those conditions as well. So the 1th term of the Fibonacci is 0, that is correct. And what about the second term? Second term is 1, so it is also correct. Fine, so with that we have finished our code. Thank you for watching. I would keep on adding more number of basic programs in our next session, so keep watching. Thanks.